Good morning and welcome. My name is Chris Mulsig. I'm one of the education service engineers here, and joining me on stage is Randon Ruggles.
Hi, everyone.
All right, so this morning we're going to go ahead and talk about simplifying the steps involved in that volume purchase program. So, again, here's our little mug shots, and let's take a look at what we got going on today. So we're going to go ahead and try and sum this up in a real-life experience. Take a look at the JSS Framework. Take a look at those users. We got to start changing our mindsets from being JSS account users, for using and managing the JSS, to now being a user who's assigned to a device. We'll take a look at invitations, app assignments, and then how can I go ahead and actually make my user aware that, hey, I've assigned this app to them. And we'll take a look at revoking as well. And then we got a Q&A section at the end. Let's take a look at that real life example.
One of the things that we noticed, and as trainers, when we go out and actually teach classes, this is a concept that lots of people get lost in the steps, and they don't really know where to go ahead and begin. So one of the things that we thought about was, let's go ahead and let's actually put a real life example behind this. And one of the things that Chris and I have been toying with and when we've been teaching is comparing this a little bit to the process of checking out a book at the library. When was the last time you all were at the library? I know. But it was something that definitely resonated with me, and I know resonated with Chris when we started thinking about this. So in the upper left-hand corner there, you've got the actual publisher, you've got the library, and then you also have the end user, the individual that's actually going ahead and purchasing or getting that library book from the library. So the couple steps here. First of all, the library has to go to the publisher and actually purchase that content. They have to go get it, say, hey, we want the new copy of the Stephen King novel, or we want the new copy of this actual DVD or ebook or whatever it ends up being. So they go ahead and actually purchase the content. The end user, to go ahead and actually check things out from the library, what do they have to do? They have to go get a library card. I know it's a little crazy, and you actually get that little thing that you go and you actually have to use that, but you have to apply for that library card. So you take that, go to the library, say, hey, you know what, I want to check out this book, and they're going to tell you, hey, you need to actually get a library card. From there, they're going to go ahead, have you fill out some paperwork, and then once you fill out that paperwork, they'll go ahead and actually issue you that library card. Now you're good to go. You can go ahead and actually check out things. So once you have that library card, you can go to the actual stacks within the library, go find that new magazine that you want or that actual Stephen King novel. Go back to the library or go to the stacks and actually grab that. And then from there, you can go ahead and check out your actual content and take that actually home with you. Read it, consume it, go ahead and work through that different content, that information that you've used your library for, gone ahead and actually gotten that information, and now you can take it home and actually consume that.
So let's take a look at how this compares to the JSS Framework. So in the upper left-hand corner, we got the volume purchase program. We got your JSS on the other side. We're going to go ahead and make that association. We got to get that service token from the VPP account. Okay? Whatever account we went ahead and signed up as an organization. So we get that account, we go out to the VPP side, we purchase our content. Being apps for the iOS, for the mobile side, being apps for the computer. Whatever we want to go ahead and purchase, paid and or free. And making sure that we got that SMTP integration inside our JSS so we can go ahead and email our folks down the road here. So a few tips. When you upload that token to your JSS, there's a couple fields that are left blank for you to go ahead and put in there like, hey, who actually went out and got that token? What was the email address that you used to get that token? Because you got to renew this in a year after you put it into your JSS. So let's go ahead and put a little documentation in there so that when I have to go ahead and say, hey, Randy, can you go do this again? We're all sitting there going, where did I go? What email address? What did you use? Okay. And you notice down there, there's also that revoke all button. Okay. We'll talk about that when we get to the revoke all section, but you can modify those JSS settings so that you know that a user doesn't have rights to go ahead and revoke everyone's app. Okay. So using those permissions. Let's take a look at the users.
Now with the users, to kind of complete this, this is like the user that's actually going to go to the library and apply for that library card. So as we go ahead, we actually take a look at that. When we moved in the JSS, and many of you are probably aware, up in the top, now we've got computers and mobile devices. Right next to that, we now have that users. And one of the things to go ahead and keep in mind is that that users object up there at the top is different than your JSS user accounts and groups, okay? Different association, different piece. So when we're going ahead and we're thinking about it, we need to go ahead and actually reframe how we're thinking about users. And these users are the users that are going to go ahead and be assigned our content, be able to go ahead and actually assume that. Different than the users that are logging into our JSS on a daily basis, making our policies, making our configuration profiles. So it's one important thing to go ahead and take a look at. With that, our users, how do we actually go ahead and get these things created? How are they in our JSS? Well, a couple of different ways. First of all, they are, can be assigned to an actual device. They can go ahead and be created through user-initiated enrollment. Or the third way to go and actually get these users created is through manual creation, and you just actually physically creating them in the JSS, non-LDAP users. With the other ones, there are definitely possibilities for LDAP here. So what we've got behind us is a little bit of a video. I'll kind of walk you through the process here. So first of all, we have a computer here, and when we go ahead and actually search for that computer, one of the methods to go and actually get a user created is to find that computer, go into our user and location information, and then once we're there, we can click the edit button, and you'll see we'll type in an actual username there, and then click the magnifying glass. That will go ahead from our LDAP, fill in the information, and that, at the same time, goes ahead and creates that user inside of the Users tab. Another way to do this is to go to our mobile devices. I'm going to actually take a look at one of our mobile devices in there. And when we go ahead and pull that up, we'll notice in the user and location field, when we go down there, that there's already information that's filled in. That's because this user, when they got the actual device, they completed user-initiated enrollment, and it went ahead and filled in that information. The third way to go and get our users created inside of our JSS is to go ahead, look at our users list, and you can see there we already have our Manny Lagos and our Paul Bunyan. We can click the plus button to go ahead and actually create a user right there in that users tab. So you can see going ahead, putting in Betty Crocker here, and Betty Crocker's email address and her phone number. So this is another way, if you don't have an LDAP in place, or you want to go ahead and just create users that maybe aren't in your LDAP or for testing purposes. This would be a way to go and actually do that. And Betty Crocker is joining JAM Software. It looks like she's going to be a cooking specialist, so we're going to have some good food to eat. So that'd be kind of fun. So that's how you go ahead and create users and get your users into the actual JSS. A couple of tips here for you. First one, go ahead and use LDAP if possible. It works best if you already have those LDAP groups. We'll get into it a little bit later with scoping, being able to put those different pieces together. But if you have LDAP, definitely go ahead and actually leverage it here. And really one of the other pieces, save yourself a lot of work. That first method of going in and actually manually associating each and every one of them, that's a lot of clicks you have to go ahead and do. And yes, you can use the API and go ahead and put it in that way. But if you can do user-initiated enrollment, or maybe even re-enroll your devices using user-initiated enrollment so that you do get that actual information from your LDAP in there, so those users go ahead and actually get created. The next step here is VPP Invitations.
So we got to go ahead and invite the user to the JSS, so getting that library card. So how are we going to go ahead and do that? So we got the methods of email or prompt. Let's take a look at emailing. So here we are going into the video here. We're going to go to the user tab across the top. We're going to go ahead and create that invitation. But first we're actually going to create the group. We're creating a smart group here of users that are not associated to that token, and users who have not received the email. So now what we're done, we're going to go ahead and narrow it down to just those users. We're going to slow down the stage here a little bit. We're going to go ahead and make sure that we're only emailing folks that are not associated and they have not received the email once already. So we create this group off of that association, off of that VPP status. It is not. And then we're going to go ahead and create our invitation. And we're going to choose the email method here to go ahead and to send this email out. That way, by sending the email, we're able to answer those same lovely questions that each one of our English teachers always asked us to create during that paper. The who, the what, the where, the why, the when. What do you want the end user to do? So by sending this email here, we're going to see we can go ahead and put all of that information in there. That way I know why am I getting this email versus just getting a little prompt on my mobile device saying, hey, do something. And I'm just not sure what's going on, I'm going to hit cancel.
The prompt is a very generic message. This way it allows you to go ahead, your end users get that who, that what, that when, that where, that why. They get the more information, so they know exactly what they need to go ahead and do. Also, it gives you a way to go ahead and kind of stage this and send this out in actual groups as you go ahead and work through it.
So we're going to require their LDAP login. Now we're going to come up and take a look at scope. So we're going to scope this to that smart group that we created of users not associated. To start with. So we see our users there. We can go ahead and pick that specific user, but we want that group. Now what we're going to do is limit it down to that LDAP group. So only members that are in that LDAP group that are not associated and not having that email sent to them is who we're picking. We're going to go ahead and hit save, and that email is off and running to any of those users in that LDAP group that have not met that criteria. All right. So some tips here. Use that smart group of not associated, not sent. Use the email invitation method. Okay. On your mobile side, if you're blocking the App Store, this isn't going to work. If I send them a prompt, I send them an email. Because that App Store has to launch for me to go ahead and sign up to be part of the VPP program. That App Store needs to be available. Missing anything?
No, you're doing great. It does go ahead and pop up that App Store. It's asking for them to go ahead and put in their Apple ID there and make that association back to your actual volume purchase program and your actual service account.
The other thing here with this notification, this email, if they don't accept it, version 9.5 of the JSS or later, the notification does show up in self-service for them to go ahead and click on. So the notification option's up there inside self-service. Let's take a look at now assigning that app to the user. So going back to the library, going back to the JSS to get that information. So go ahead.
So what are you actually assigning? And that's really what it comes down to. Are you assigning iOS apps? Are you assigning Mac apps? And then you really have to determine who are you actually assigning this to. So if we go ahead and actually take a look here at the next slide here, we've got a video. And so what we're going to do is we're going to go back up to that Users tab. Now that users have associated their Apple ID to our token, they have their actual library card. The first thing we're going to do, though, is we're going to create a smart group. A little bit like last time, this is going to be the VPP invitation is actually associated. They have completed that email, they have walked through the process, and they have gone ahead and actually associated back to our actual volume purchase account. So, is associated, now we actually have that. That's going to go ahead and narrow it down. So if they haven't completed that process, then we're not going to go ahead and actually scope an application out to them. Then when they call us and they say, hey, why don't I see this? That's why. So we're going to go back into VPP assignments here, and we're going to go ahead, we're going to actually create a VPP assignment for our staff here. Wunderlist is apparently something that Safari wants to now autocorrect. We've got our actual account. Many of you probably have multiple accounts inside of your JSS. So we'll go ahead and we'll select our EDU one. We'll select our actual application there, Wunderlist. We're going to go ahead, we see our users just like before. We're going to go ahead and first select that user group of people that have actually completed the process, associated their Apple ID. Then we're going to go over there and we're going to go ahead and limit it, just like we did before, to our actual staff group. Click the add, click the done button. Okay? At this point in time, that application goes ahead and shows up in their purchase history. I want to go ahead also and duplicate this and show you for the Mac side, same exact process. We put in our actual display name here. We're going to go ahead and distribute out Apple Configurator to our technicians. You'll see, select the actual account. You purchase that. The stuff that shows up here is because you've actually purchased that in the volume purchase program. It's going ahead and showing up here. We're going to go ahead, once again, choose that user group of people that have actually gone ahead, associated their Apple ID, go over to our limitations, click the add, actually look for our LDAP group, and then go ahead and go from there. It's the same exact process whether you're dealing with mobile devices or with computers here. We'll go ahead and hit save, we'll hit done, and we're off to the races. Couple tips here when you go ahead and actually do this. Definitely using that smart group for users that have actually associated. That can go ahead and help you through the process. That way, if they're still not getting the information that you want them to see, tell them to go to self-service. Like Chris mentioned, that notification is going to be right there saying, hey, they haven't completed the process. So use that actual smart group. Also with this, try and be modular. Don't bundle your actual distribution of your applications in one individual assignment. Just like we talked about with configuration profiles in class, be modular with them. You can create lots of these inside of there. Do one for one application, one for the other one, for the same exact reasons we talk about being modular with your configuration profiles, both for your troubleshooting and also if maybe later on down the road you need to revoke. It's going to be a little bit easier if you go ahead and keep that modular. Also, mentioned this before, but the content is going to go ahead at this point in time and appear in the user's purchase history. They see it, it's there. But Chris is going to talk about how do we make this process a little bit easier.
So now we can go ahead and we've assigned the app, let's go ahead and make it available, make the user know that they have it. How many of you guys want to go ahead and dig through the thousands or hundreds of apps that you have in your iOS, on your iTunes account? I certainly don't. I want someone to go ahead and tell me that it's there. I want that phone call from the library saying, hey, your book's available. It just came in. Get here today, otherwise I'm giving it to the next user. So how can we go ahead and make that possible? Getting that content so I can take it home. So is it going to be a computer, mobile device? I got to make that decision. So let's take a look here at the video. We're going to go ahead and start with the mobile device side here. Go into the mobile device, go into the App Store. We're going to go ahead and pick that app. And so we're going to go find it just like we were doing before. Grab the app. And we're going to come up and take a look. Notice you have the option to install automatically. Okay, but we're going to make this available in self-service. I'm keeping my network in mind here when I go ahead and do this. Making it available. Scoped it to all devices, but here I'm going to come in and limit it down to that LDAP group of staff. Okay, so I assign it to all staff because that's who I've sent that invite to. That's who I've assigned that app to. Now I can go ahead and feature it if I want, the category, and go ahead and hit save. Same thing on the computer side. Take a look at the computer side. We go to the Mac App Store, find that app. We're going to go ahead and bring that app in. Then we're going to go ahead, take a look here. We could go ahead and install automatically, but again, we're going to put it in self-service. We scope it to all computers. We're going to limit it down to that LDAP group that we assigned the app to. Putting it in self-service, setting that up. Going to go ahead and feature this so that folks know it's there and assign its display categories. Go ahead, save, and we're off and running. That app's now in their self-service. When they launch self-service, we're good to go. Okay, so a few tips here. Keep in mind your network infrastructure. Okay? You got one access point in every room, just one in the hallway that's taking care of 50, 60 users. Can this actually support all of that information coming down? That's why we've said, keep that in mind, use self-service. Let the end user go ahead and get it. Okay. To install automatically, there's a bunch of conditions that need to be met. And if one of them's not met, there's a hole in the road, that app's not coming down. Install automatic, downloads, does not need to be turned on for this to happen. Okay. That's why we put it in self-service, let the end user go get it when they need it.
When users walk through this, and just kind of reiterate this step, it's not specifically required that you go ahead and do this last part. We recommend it though, because otherwise you're going to teach your end users to go to the downloads, the purchase history, and go ahead and actually see the list of all the different pieces there that are now associated to them or things they can go ahead and take home with them. Like Chris said, I don't know about your actual purchase history, but mine is really long. I don't want to teach my end users to go in there every single day and be like, hey, you know what, there's new content, there's new content, there's new content. I want to have them go to the place they already know where to go, self-service, and click the button and then go ahead and actually download it from there. So that's why we're recommending this. Automatic downloads, that box does go ahead and pop up the first time they walk through this process. If they hit it, they hit it. If they don't, you can go ahead and actually teach them or coach them to go ahead and hit that cancel button.
So revoking that app. iOS, go ahead.
The first thing that you have to go ahead and kind of keep in mind here is whether or not you're going to do your iOS apps, your Mac apps, you can go ahead and revoke that stuff. The ebooks, you can't revoke them. The distribution looks exactly the same. So everything we've shown you here for how you go ahead and click the boxes and go through that process, it works exactly the same for ebooks. The only condition here is you can't go ahead and revoke your content for your ebooks that are coming from the volume purchase program and the Mac App Store. So you cannot revoke those. It will actually even tell you that when you go ahead and create the assignment in little gray text, you can't go ahead and revoke this. So how do you go ahead and actually revoke your apps, whether they are for your mobile devices or whether you're for your actual computers? A couple ways. First of all, and maybe easy, go ahead and remove that user from the LDAP group. You may go ahead when you start this process and create new LDAP groups to go ahead and actually have them walk through the process. Maybe there's one that for teachers that actually need pages, for teachers that need to go ahead and do this, for your sales staff, for your actual marketing team. Whatever it ends up being, maybe you go ahead and actually do those based on LDAP groups. If you can do that, do it in your LDAP. Just go ahead and remove a user out of there. It's going to go ahead and actually come off. You can change the scope of that actual VPP assignment. That could be an option, maybe even adding in an exclusion for an individual user group. If you've got many of them in there, you can change the app selection. As you saw, we went ahead, we checked the box in that VPP assignment. If you uncheck that box, that's going to go ahead and revoke it. You could just straight up go down the lower right-hand corner and click the delete button on that actual VPP assignment. It will pop up, tell you that this is going to go ahead and actually revoke. That would be an option. Or maybe the most comprehensive way. Chris mentioned when you go ahead and add your VPP token in, you're going to notice there's a revoke all button down there at the bottom. You could go that far to go ahead and actually revoke all. And there are some interesting uses. Maybe, from year to year, you go ahead, if you're in a K-12, you go ahead and hit that revoke all button. Otherwise, probably want to stay away from that. But that would be a way to go ahead and actually revoke your applications.
So this one or all, you don't need to do all of those. Kind of pick one of them, kind of put the simplest one at the top, kind of going at the bottom there is taking the sledgehammer, kind of go ahead and get the app back. Okay, so how do I want to go ahead and get the little pesky mosquito? What does that revoke mean? Okay. 30-day grace period. Okay. That's language right out of the article from Apple, their PDF in the volume, in the Education and Business Guide to the Volume Purchasing Program. Okay. So buy that personal copy of the app when revoked.
So just to kind of recap here just a little bit. We know there are a lot of steps. We're trying to make it a little bit simple here, kind of lay them out for you. So first of all, just to recap, you got to get your JSS framework in place. Get your actual VPP service token. Go ahead and create that actual piece in there. Second piece, you're going to have to get your users in check. Whatever that ends up looking like, how you actually create them, we went through 3 different methods to go and actually do that. The third thing here, VPP invitations. Create lots of those. Use those actual smart groups as you walk through the process. On the fourth piece here, you've got your actual VPP assignments. How are you actually assigning that content? Remember, be granular with how you do it. Be modular with how you actually put that pieces together. Fifth piece, that VPP content deployment. Remember, trying to force them, go ahead, recommend them to use actual self-service, get their content from there so they actually know, they already know how to get there. Continue to leverage that.
Questions?
Yes, sir.
Bill, you want to help us out possibly with a question?
For free apps that have App Store versions and download versions, like Evernote,
Yep.
is this a better way to go than packaging up download?
Yeah, so the question was for free applications that both you can get from the App Store or that you can go ahead and package up yourself. Is this a better way to go ahead and go? One of the things that we often run into is if you go ahead and you package up that Evernote, it's going to go ahead when it needs an update, what's it going to ask for? It's going to ask for the actual Apple ID for the user that went ahead and actually downloaded that. So if you can do it, yes, there are free apps in the volume purchase program. This is definitely an easier way to go if you want to go ahead and let your end users update the apps when they want to go ahead and do it. This would definitely go ahead and help you out in that end. If you want to go ahead and maintain your actual update cycle and really kind of force them, maybe you still continue to go ahead and package it. I know it's one of the things lots of organizations are going down the road of doing free apps this way because they want to let the end users go ahead and update them, and it's less of a support call for you because then they can just update it when they want.
They need to know, they use their own Apple ID then to do updates, or they have to know our?
Nope. If you go through managed distribution this way, they're going to go ahead getting that library card again. They're going to put in their Apple ID there. So when it needs an update, it's going to ask for their Apple ID.
There's some apps that are considered free, but not really free. For example, like buy photos on every Mac, but you don't apply it. You guys see where people have to purchase, even though it's technically free, they still have to buy all licenses for people. I know that's the situation I'm in. It's like, do we just offer it for free? Do we just keep on the Macs? I'm just curious how you guys have seen that.
I haven't seen that yet. No.
So the question was, is those free apps that come on the devices already, like iPhoto, okay, what is your recommendation? Kind of summed it up, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So someone said contact Apple.
Apple actually has a program where you can hand them the serial numbers for your devices. You can apply to get your free copy of Pages, your numbers, your Keynote,
iMovie.
and I'm certain.
Yep.
You actually, there's a VPP EDU support page,
Yep.
portal page. If you go there and fill that form out, there's somebody that'll answer you within 24 hours, and you'll probably have to provide all your serial numbers to them.
So to sum that up, that answer, contact Apple. You need your serial number of your devices, so go do an advanced report, get your serial numbers. You got them.
And there is a knowledge base article on that. So if you need that, I know I have a bookmark. Come see me after. I'll go ahead and help you out with that. We got two people. Sorry. We'll start over here.
There's one caveat on that. They're free when you purchase the device. So if you're trying to get the newer ones and you've got some older Macs, you might not be eligible until you actually look at your new devices.
Okay, so to recap that, there's one caveat. Make sure older devices, newer devices, make sure you actually get your pieces in check. And there was one other comment to that somewhere over here. Yeah.
You still need, the individual users still need Apple IDs and that's and everything.
Well, yeah, because what they do is they'll give you a choice. They'll either give you redemption codes if that's
Yep.
what you want, or they'll give you a managed distribution
Yep.
to whichever purchasing account you want it to go on. You have to choose whether you want it in the form of redeemable codes. Now, say you're doing configurator on a whole bunch of them, you're going to want redeemable codes. But say you're doing managed distribution on a one-to-one, well, yeah, I'm going to want to make sure they put that on the right purchasing account, so that way we can do the library card.
Yeah. So the question was, does the user actually need an Apple ID in that method? It's up to you. When you go ahead and actually give Apple your information, they'll go ahead and give you a choice in the volume purchase program, just like we see right now when we go purchase an app. Do you want to get your redeemable codes? Do you want to actually get your managed distribution? You can make that decision at that point.
And fair warning, if you choose your redeemable codes and you got 2,000 or 3,000 of them, they will give you a damn spreadsheet with 2,000 or 3,000 codes, and I had fun carving
Yeah.
that spreadsheet up 1,000 times.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah.
So yeah, it's actually, there's a link at the bottom of your VPP portal,
Yep.
and you click on that link, and that's where you request the codes, and you can just, if everything's linked right, you should just be able to put in your order numbers, and you don't have to give them your serial numbers. They will auto-generate the correct amount of codes for you.
Awesome. Thank you.
What you do is you fill out,
Well,
Here's the form.
fill out the iOS fulfillment and where your Mac.
okay.
Because I had to do that myself with 40 iPads.
Okay, so what the comment is from the top is make sure you actually fill out your stuff there. Yes, question?
How would I do that one?
So the question was,
I mean, back in the day, that's I was syncing with one Apple ID for the entire organization that I had. So.
The question was, what is the recommendation, or what do we recommend personally for those individuals that are in an Apple configurator model right now, where they have one actual syncing cart with all the actual applications are tied to that one Apple ID, moving to managed distribution?
Well, one, I'd be asking to ask my question, are those mobile devices part of DEP, Device Enrollment Program? Because if they are, Apple configurator and those devices aren't going to get along. They're going to be like oil and water. So I'd be having to ask myself that question. And then go ahead and take a look. How do I want to go ahead? Do I want to constantly syncing, or do I want to move away from that model and get it so I can go ahead and do that managed distribution and go ahead that route? So unsupervised.
I guess the limiting factor that I've run into with people is, can you actually get Apple IDs for every single one of those people that are actually using it? So if they're students and they're under 13, do you want to go through the process of getting those actual Apple IDs and then going ahead and distributing out the content? If it's easier for you to do that, go that method. If it's not, there's not a problem with the Apple configurator method right now. You can continue to use that, especially if you're doing a restore from a backup and that type of a workflow, you might continue to live in that world. This is definitely handy if you have individuals that are going ahead, they're in charge of their actual device, they're using it on a regular basis, they have their own Apple ID, they're going to go ahead and update and stay on top of it. But if you want to go ahead and remain a little bit more in control, use that Apple configurator method. It's truly options for you. Yeah, in the middle here. So the comment there, I'll just stop you right there. The comment there is, if you have problems with VPP, use the link down at the bottom, contact Apple, they'll get back to you hopefully very soon. Yes, your question. 1 second. He had a question right in front of you, and then we'll get to you. Sorry, bud.
I'm in the, we'll call it shared cart model configurator aspect. Yeah, like 2,000 plus iPads that are shared, not about to get Apple IDs, or it's not enough for one-to-one. In the beginning, step one, you showed how to link a token, which looked a lot like APNS kind of, right?
Yeah.
Subscription based. What if you've got a lot of VPP accounts, not just one? Because in this situation, the example, like you were saying, with your one and all your VPP purchases,
Yep.
you make that one JSS. You need to add one per school.
Yep.
Title from.
You can add as many as you want. You can assign a VPP service token to each site that you have. So each one of those you can go ahead and convert into being VPP managed app, bring each one of those service tokens into the JSS, so you can go ahead and keep that purchase history going. Yep.
Question, sir.
So, when you revoke an app, you get that 30-day grace period.
Yes.
So let's say you have an app like GoodReader and you have a configuration there. And since you're managing and you're removing the app, you want to remove that data. So does that data stay there for that 30-day grace period, or does it get deleted when you revoke the app? Like, how's that happening? You know, what trigger happens first? I remove the person from that, app is gone, does data delete at that instance, or does data delete 30 days later?
Depends on how you actually distributed that application, okay? So if you distribute it as a managed app and actually check those boxes, if you then go over there and change the scope of that actual managed distribution, then it's going to go, come on. Did you have another comment?
So that's why if we do that step 5 there,
Yeah.
that content deployment of those mobile device apps, that option there, making it managed, means something completely different than VPP managed. That gives me the ability to go ahead and actually make sure that when that app's removed, the data is also removed. We're not backing it up potentially. And then go ahead and we change the scope there, we can remove it as well.
Yeah, Kevin.
Yeah, two comments about app revocation. First of all, if it's a free app and you revoke it, they still have it. I mean, it's free. Why would you revoke? I mean, you can revoke it and get your code back, but they will be given the free app. And secondly, that 30-day rule is optional, opt-in per developer. So you might have an app that sits there for 3 years if the developer didn't implement the code to auto-remove. But Apple gives you at least 30 days so that the user can purchase their own app.
We've seen a variety of different things after that 30-day period of what ends up happening to that app. So you just have to try out your apps and see what happens. Other questions? In the back, in the blue there. I haven't seen anything yet. Come talk to us after. Definitely look on Jamf Nation, see feature requests that are there. I haven't heard anything as of yet, but there you go. Someone just mentioned VPP does not support in-app purchases. Maybe in the future. We'll see.
Had some luck in a lot of cases, like say you're deploying a geometry worksheets app that they make available for free and they haven't put it on that
Yeah.
If you email the developer, they
Yep.
can help you. If not, just stick it in the
So the comment is talk to your app developers. You guys, as purchasers, you have more power than you think you do. So see what you can do. I know I did that all the time as a customer as well. Reached out and said, hey, here's what I want, or here's a tweak I need to actually deploy this. They should be able to work. Or the comment was choose a different app.
Well, I had a Mac app that I was trying to get one time, and they didn't have the Mac App Store ability to get codes and whatnot for it, and we couldn't get it. I talked to the developer, he gave me a volume copy of it for nothing, and he had it out 2 days later, so.
Yeah. So talking to your developer can definitely work. There was another question down here. Yeah.
So I have an app that I'd like to push out to a group of team, 10 people, and it's going to go manage distribution, VPP. I know 2 of them already bought it already. Does it take that into consideration, or do I need to buy 10 seats for 10 people still? You know,
10 seats for 10 people.
that's what I thought.
Doesn't check.
Because the JSS, we're not going to know their Apple ID that they signed up. So if I don't know their Apple ID, I can't go dig around in their purchase history to see if they have the app.
Do you want to repeat the question too?
So the question was, I'm going to go ahead and deploy an app to, say, 10 folks, but 2 or 3 of those folks already have it. Do I still need to purchase 10? Yeah, because I don't know their Apple ID. I can't go dig around in their purchase history. I can see if they have it on their device. When I go ahead and do that content deployment, I can make a smart group and deploy it. I think we got a couple over here.
So, when we look at VPP, we look at an iTunes account per device. How do you get past the credit card? Right, you have to have a credit card before you can use the iTunes account.
You want to?
So creating an Apple ID with a credit card?
Well, I mean, isn't that,
Without.
go through that process?
Yeah, so you can go through that process of creating Apple IDs without a credit card. Apple has a support article on how to go ahead and create those Apple IDs without a credit card.
Yep.
If they're for students, take a look at the Apple ID for students. So
Right. Yes.
To the gentleman about purchasing 10 copies, it's well worth looking at 20. Usually it's the same price as 20. Most apps go 50%.
Education. So if you're a corporate customer, you're in a different boat, unfortunately. But yes, if you're education, go down that road. If not, 21 or 22 for a testing copy. Yes, great comment. So the comment was, if you're in education, if you're buying 10, you might as well go and buy 20 because you get that discount. Yes.
Our middle school, they're on carts and the kids travel, so they have to be associated with that single device. They can't go from one device, sign out an Apple ID, go to another device, sign in, and re-download the app. They have to stay with that device can travel.
yep.
If they wanted to, you could have them go down that road. You're going to get those apps in different places, and then what's going to end up happening is if someone else goes and picks up that actual device and it needs an update, it's going to go back, remember, to that actual Apple ID. So you could. Is it a lot more work? Probably, but if you wanted to go down that road, you're going to run into limitations from Apple, though, too, as far as how many devices you're actually syncing that content down onto. Yeah.
features, there's going to be an easier way in the JSS to revoke licenses for individual users. Just go and look up the user and then just disassociate them from all of their assigned content.
Yep, I believe that's a feature request. I would encourage you to upvoting it. I don't have any inside information that I can share with you about that. Sorry. You can come talk to us later, or we can introduce you to someone from product management, and you can have that conversation if you want.
That's why, like Randy made that comment, making those special LDAP groups. Instead of using the one that's in there already called staff or already called students, I make a new one and I make them a member of that. Well, then I go ahead, in the graduating class of 2016, they're walked across the stage, I just remove them from that LDAP group called VPP Invite or whatever I called it, and just boom, they're done. Removed them all, or just pick that individual student out.
I'm just thinking of that gentleman's request with so if your end user is already purchased an app and your institution without purchasing that same app, you choose E and you push that out to the user, what happens to their existing app they already purchased? Does the Apple ID change in terms of using that feed, or does it stay at where they're at? For that?
So in the volume purchase program, so the question is what happens to their user's Apple ID that they already have it? Okay. So in that step 3 here, that VPP invitation, that end user's using whatever Apple ID they use 99% of the time. So when I get that email, so when Jamf sends me the email, I'll be honest, it's tied to my personal Apple ID, not the one that I have from Jamf that I use in class all the time. Okay, so that's the one that I signed up with. Okay? But in the JSS, it doesn't know what Apple ID I signed up. So all my apps that I have purchased previously, they're still working because they're tied to my personal Apple ID. Just like all the new ones that Jamf's going to go ahead and give available to me, they're going to work because now they're tied to my Apple ID.
We got a couple over here. Yes, sir.
So the step 2, where you're associating a device with the user.
Yeah.
How do you deal with the scenario that the user didn't necessarily tell you that they are handing the device off to somebody else?
Yep.
How do you handle that? And getting the device re-updated afterwards?
Yeah, so the question is, how do you deal with a handoff of a device and they didn't actually tell the IT department that that device is now in someone else's hands? One of the things to go ahead and kind of keep in mind is, remember this VPP invitation that actually goes and gets sent to them. They're going to go ahead and actually be asked at that point in time to put in their actual Apple ID. That's the link there. So if they're on a new device and they're actually going in there and downloading, they still see all those apps that are associated to them. The apps are associated and the content is associated with the Apple ID, not the physical device. How do we get the user in there? Through user-initiated enrollment, through actually changing it in those pieces. So we're just getting that user into the Users tab up at the top. The actual distribution of the content goes to their actual Apple ID. So revoking it, using those LDAP groups, using the different pieces. If you want to go ahead and actually change which user is associated, you've got a couple different ways. I mean, you can change it in user and location. You could go ahead and have them re-enroll it with their new LDAP credentials. I mean, we can go through it. If it gets more specific, definitely come up and talk to us and we can walk through some scenarios too. Question?
You guys had talked about signing up through the Mac App Store as well, so they have to go back and look at the purchases.
Yes.
I love that idea. Now, the question that I have is, if they haven't accepted the VPP and it's seen it self-service, and click on it, is it going to say, hey, I need to charge you $9.99 until the point in time in which they've accepted it, and then it would show up free?
Yeah, so the question is, if you go ahead and you take a Mac App Store app and it's a $9.99 app, and you go ahead and you put it in self-service, when they actually click on that in self-service, it's going to go take them to the actual App Store and tell them that it's a $9.99 app. At that point in time, if they got a credit card associated, they click the button, they would actually purchase it. If you go ahead and walk through the process, you actually purchase the applications through VPP, and then you go ahead and actually assign it to them, then when they go and actually click on it, it will just have an install button. Inside, so in self-service, they click on it, it actually takes them to the App Store, and then they can just go ahead and click install from there. Yeah. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Would there be have a tie back to the VPP to make it available once they're accepted?
That's why when we created that app assignment, we created that smart group of folks that have associated their Apple ID. So when we go to the content side and then we go ahead and scope, they're not going to see it in self-service until they've actually completed step 1. So I can't pass go, collect my $200 until I actually fill out the invitation. Once I do that, then the door opens for me to see all the apps that you as the organization are assigning to me.
Ask one second question about user collection. On the iOS side, you guys have the AD credential sign in right there. Is that coming to the Mac side?
AD sign it, you mean like at user-initiated enrollment?
No, for like that through the initial enrollment. We've been testing with the ET for the actual release updates and releases.
Yep.
But there's no user credentials put in during that initial setup phase.
Right. Yeah. Why don't you come up after and we can have that conversation? Yes.
I had a quick question about the enrollment. Is it possible, does the JSS know what Apple ID accepted the invitation?
So the question is, does the JSS know which Apple ID the user actually goes ahead and associates? The answer is no. And that is by design, the JSS does not know which one. They're making that association to the volume purchase program. You're leveraging the volume purchase program to go ahead and actually assign that actual content. So you're taking your licenses and Apple's actually doing that transfer for you.
Running into it before they're not sure what they accept.
Yep. And so the comment was, we have some younger students and don't know which Apple ID they actually go ahead and use, and that's where documentation, that's where doing it in small groups, those types of pieces, and I'm sure you've looked at it, have come into play. Yes, question.
All right, a question about copies being handed out. If I create an AD group with 10 users, my purchase program buys those 10 copies, and they go out. Then, for whatever reason, 5 more people get added to that AD group. What happens?
Repeat the question.
So the question is I assigned it to an LDAP group, and all of a sudden I get 5 more staff members, 5 more students. I need to go ahead and add them to that LDAP group. Okay? So we add them to that LDAP group, things are going to go ahead and take place, because now we get the JSS talking to LDAP. I can go ahead there and click the resend button. It's going to go ahead and I could resend that invitation out. The app is already assigned. I've added them to that LDAP group. So when they launch self-service, by having that information assigned to their device, it's going to go ahead and know about them.
What about, so
Yeah.
I only bought 10 copies.
He only bought 10.
15.
So now we have to go back to the VPP store. We got to purchase those 5 more copies.
What if he didn't?
So back, actually it's in the video, it's not a screenshot, I think it was in class, sorry. On that screen where you're assigning that app, it shows you how many copies you have purchased and how many copies are in use. So you get that running total. And Chris Zell acting like a sign up there for us, thanks. We got a question in the way back.
Yeah, does the child accounts and their family share
The question was, does child sharing or Apple IDs under 13 and family sharing, does that throw any kinks? To be honest, haven't played with it yet. Don't know. I'm just going to be honest.
especially thinking that with the
Yeah. Yep.
we are deploying apps, is that the child account?
Yeah.
Is the parent going to have to be able to allow that?
Yeah, totally get it. Send us an email. We'll look into it and we can get back to you.
Sandy.
So we rolled this out at our middle school this fall. Family sharing was a problem initially, but Apple fixed some stuff in the background that's, I think, corrected that, because it just went away. Regarding exclusions, we had kids that unenrolled instantly after we had everything set up. So now when I do app assignments, I always clone them, and in my app assignment, I have an exclusion that's a static group, where we can just put the kid in the static group when they leave the building, when they leave enrollment, and then every app just gets taken away from them when they go in that static group. The only thing that I'm still struggling with is a very small number of kids. Everything lines up, but the apps never show up. And we've tried excluding them, re-adding them, have the kid, swear on a stack of Bibles that this is the Apple ID they use, but if anybody has additional troubleshooting stuff, I'm working with Jam, but it's so weird that every once in a while we'll get 1 or 2 or 3 kids that it's just something is stuck and the apps don't show up.
I can say one thing to that. I actually had one that it was dragging me longer with that. It turned out that happened to be the day that iOS 8 was released, and it turned out that I was dealing with an under 13 account. Yeah, the parent had to go and give updated consent. Once that happened, yeah, I didn't realize the whole under 13 thing required ongoing consent, not just a one-time grant of consent. When Apple puts out a new EULA, you gotta sometimes watch for that. I've had not my VPP account
Yep.
in Casper a couple of times till I went and granted updated consent in my VPP account,
Right, and we actually created our under 13 accounts. We
which
had
is
parents
smart,
sign off.
smart.
So what that means that we now have to go into every single one and agree to those iOS 8 terms.
But at least you're giving yourself that control.
But the thing is that there isn't any correlation. We're looking at the device and it's not yet at iOS 8. So it seems weird to me that that would be holding it up.
Because they, well,
Because
even
they
if you're
haven't
not on
gone there yet?
iOS 8, it'll last for.
Yeah, it's, so we're slogging our way through those new consents, but so far that is, I mean, it's like one kid, which in the grand scheme isn't a big deal, but for that one kid,
It is.
it's a really big deal.
It's a very big.
Yep.
All right.
I do that.
Off the top of my head, I don't have anything, but we can
Right, so, and you
hang our heads and we can try and come up with some other ideas. So,
And then the other thing that we think we're seeing is sometimes, because we actually converted 2 VPP
They've seen issues too, so talk to them after. Yeah. Any other final questions here?
One more here.
Have you guys come across like a consistent workflow? Like I do with Opens, very small environment, but I can't imagine large environments with regards to like individual Apple IDs that are integrated into some directory systems. Because it looks like it's a manual process and asking people. Like, is there any off keys that we collect or deal with that information in advance so it's accessible? Because that's what we're doing every time that we're individually assigning these VPP assignments, right? I'm going out and asking my users, what's your Apple ID today?
The invitation, when that invitation actually gets sent from the JSS, it will pop up. It will ask them to go to the actual App Store. And then at that point in time, it's going to ask them to put in their Apple ID. That's the only point in time where they put in the Apple ID. If they need to, and then when you go ahead and distribute out that content goes ahead and gets distributed to that Apple ID's purchased history. Then if they need to go download it, update it, any of those things, then it's going to ask them for that Apple ID again. The invitation is a one-time thing. Once they have accepted that invitation, they have linked their Apple ID to your actual volume purchase program service account, your service token.
So that invitation is the route. We can use our corporate email address, and then when they're clicking on that,
It's going to pop up, and they can put in whatever Apple ID they want to put in. Yep. Sorry if that was confusing. Right in the middle.
So something super important that you have to understand about how this is architected. Apple IDs belong to individuals. That is Apple's stance. So the reason you don't know what Apple ID they're using is because Apple doesn't think you should care. Because when that employee leaves, they should be able to take their Apple ID with them to the next worker, next job, and then that Apple ID gets invited to Facebook VPP account. So Apple sees this as a solution where everybody has their own Apple ID, and it does not belong to the institution. It belongs to the individual. Understanding that's the goal should kind of answer a lot of these questions about which Apple ID should I be using. And the answer is not yours. Theirs.
We got one up here.
We got one down here.
just in relation to the VPP invitation, the App Store has to be open for that. But how does this process work with now the ability to have the self-service app in the App Store blocked?
Yeah.
So on the mobile device, you can go ahead and actually block the App Store. So blocking that App Store, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so on the mobile side, I can go ahead and take away the App Store with the configuration profile. If I go ahead and do that step 5 of content deployment, put it in the App Store in self-service, I click on it, it opens up the App Store for a little bit, and then puts the app on. So that's why we want to go ahead and do that step 5 of that content deployment.
There's an issue with that, though. We found that students who continually click on the apps in self-service, it opens up the App Store long enough for them to go in and check whatever apps are.
Any suggestions for subscriptions like Creative Cloud or 365?
Not off the top of my head, but come talk to us. We got about 3 minutes here, so
We got
that's
one
why I got our
more.
contact information back up on the board, because I know we probably haven't answered everyone's question. So
We got one more way up at the top.
the email invite. Okay, so you sent the email invitation, and then the end user just forwarded it throughout the organ.
Yeah. Invitation, yeah. So the question was, can we just send one invitation, VPP invitation, to a teacher, and then have that teacher go ahead and distribute that out to their students. The comment up there was an invitation can only be accepted once. The other thing that I want to keep you in mind, and I haven't tried that out, but the other piece of it is how are you actually limiting it down, and then are you actually forcing them to log in with their LDAP credentials when they go through that process? So there are a couple pieces there to go ahead, and maybe if we're not understanding it right, come down and we can have a more in-depth conversation too. I think we're on time.
I think we're on time.
Thank you so much. Our information's up there. Please come talk to us.